How's it going, everybody? Bryan, Alvarez, and Dave Meltzer here, Wrestling Observer Radio. It is October 18, 2018, figure4online.com/wrestlingobserver.com. We got a lot of news to talk about here today. Was not promoted as well as Raw 1000 or the Raw 25 show, but that Smackdown 1000 was a lot of fun. Some good angles, maybe leading to WrestleMania. Ray looked great. More Americans going into the tournament to determine the best in the world. It had beat Raw in the ratings, Dave.
Well, it should have. I actually thought the rating was very disappointing. I thought anything under 2.7 million would be disappointing. I mean, it was, I think, let me get the number right. I think it was the 13th highest rated Smackdown of the year. When Raw did its show in January, its 25th anniversary show, which admittedly was promoted much harder, but still, this was still promoted as a special show. That was the largest Raw audience. They did 4.5 million viewers. This did 2.5 million viewers. I mean, it's not even close. The Raw audience was the biggest in 3 years. The SmackDown audience, it was the biggest since April. But yeah, it was the 13th most watched episode of SmackDown for this year. That's not an impressive number for bringing all those people back and promoting it for weeks and Rey Mysterio back and, all that. It did have, competition. But I mean, yeah, I thought as a show, it was a fun show to watch. But ratings wise, it was very, I thought that number was a disappointing number. The Raw number was, I guess what we would call a normal number for now. I mean, it did have pretty tough competition, because it had both the baseball and the football against it. It did about the same as it's been doing, a little up from last week, which I guess is good in the sense up from, for a normal Raw show, up from a show that was coming off of a pay-per-view, to maintain. I thought it would actually go down a little bit. SmackDown, it was up huge under the age of 50, but it was not up at all over the age of 50. It was up huge with men. It was down with women. It's the SmackDown show from last night. So, or not necessarily down with women, but no, I mean, it was about the same with women as it's been, which should have been much higher. So it would essentially the building of the SmackDown appealed very much to people under the age of 34. Which is funny because you would think the nostalgia shows would appeal to people older. And it still did very well with the 35 to 49s, and it did actually less than the...
Well, it was a lot of nostalgia from kind of like the mid 2000s as opposed to the nostalgia we usually get from like the 90s. I mean, Batista, Evolution, Orton, I mean, that was... a 34-year-old now would have been like a teenager back then watching it, so I can kind of understand that.
Yeah.
The nostalgia didn't go as far back as usual here.
True. I think, but still, with the old, you would think that it would have, held up with the older audience. But still, I mean, the strongest it did as far as gaining was teenagers. It was up 56% from the week before with teenagers, which is gigantic. I thought that, the Batista segment, I thought Batista was really good.
It was awesome.
By the end of the segment, you really, they built up a match that looks like it's going to be a WrestleMania match. So we got something there finally.
The funniest thing about that is, and I hate to complain because I absolutely loved it, but the funniest thing to me is he does this great speech and he puts over Randy Orton and he puts over Ric Flair. He makes some jokes. People laugh. He puts over Hunter, talks about Hunter's the best. He's done it all. He's been a wrestler, 14-time champions, running the company. He's done it all, he says. Except beat me. And everybody goes crazy, and Batista just like stares a hole in Hunter. And the funny thing is, why is he mad?
I don't know. And
why was he mad at Hunter for never beating him? Like, it was totally ridiculous, but it was such a great line, and the fans loved it, and Hunter loved it. It was a perfectly delivered line, and I loved everything about it. But I was sort of driving around today, and I got to thinking about it, and I was like,
well, now you're using logic. But
why was he so mad?
But why did they hug at the end?
Well, they
I mean, it was a tense hug.
Tensions were, I mean, they hugged and then they glared at each other again. And
it was a tense hug. I mean, I didn't think that it hurt, but I was just wondering what the mentality was when they're putting this together of like, okay, we're going to have all this heat, then we're going to hug, and then we're going to leave with tension. It's like, well, why do we need to hug?
I think the idea was that they're not doing this at Survivor Series probably. Probably will wait till WrestleMania. So
it better not. It doesn't serve any purpose.
Hold that thing off for a while and build it up. Hopefully not too much, just a little. They don't need a lot.
Yeah.
This actually is a match where, based on this one angle that they did, if they had not hugged, if the segment would have just ended with them sort of glaring at each other, I mean, I don't think you would have had to shoot any more angles, and this match would have done well at WrestleMania.
Well, you have to do interviews building it up at the end. I mean, down the line. I mean, do you have to do physical angles? Not really. I don't think you have to do physical angles, but you have to at least explain and get a personal issue involved, in February and March to get the thing going. But, I mean, as far as whatever else, I don't know. I don't know how much he's going to work. I mean, I don't know the answer to any of that yet, as far as if he's going to be around a lot, a little. He's not booked on any other shows that I'm aware of at this point. But he's wanted to come back and work with Triple H. I mean, that's been his goal for years, ever since.
Hey, this is a great Mania match. What could be better?
Well, it's a match. He's 49 years old. He'll be 50 by the time Mania comes around. He's in good shape. He trains hard. But still, he's 50. He was not ever great. He was good. He was all right. It's with Bill Goldberg, they kept it very, very short. I wouldn't be too worried about it. I think him and Triple H, who will be, 49 at that point? I just watched that Triple H Undertaker match, and I like to believe that match was really crummy because of Undertaker, who we'll probably be seeing wrestle too, and not Triple H, but it was hard to say. Age does catch up, and I know WrestleMania, you bring those guys back, but it turns into a point of diminishing returns as well when you keep doing this, in the sense of, you got Kurt, who's probably going to be on the show as well. It's like, how many of these guys? I mean, it's almost like, I remember with Heyman when he was going to go into TNA years ago, and his big thing was, we can have one legend. I don't care who it is. It can be Hogan, it can be Sting, whoever, but I only want one, and everyone else has to go. And Dixie Carter completely didn't understand what he meant. It's like, you can have the aging legend there. That's a good character to have, but you don't want 5 or 6 of them, because then you're an old man promotion. And I think it's the same thing here. It's like, we can have Undertaker and we can have Batista, but I don't know if we want Kurt Angle. I don't know if we want everyone at WrestleMania, because then it becomes this thing of, you're watching a whole bunch of guys that are slower than they used to be, and you're also taking the spotlight from the younger guys. I mean, it's like, WrestleMania is for that. It is for bringing people back. John Cena will be back, and he hasn't looked good in a long time either. I mean, how many guys
he looked so old last night? I don't know if it's the haircut or what, but oh my God.
Yeah, didn't his face look old?
Yeah, he looks like an old man now, and he didn't look like an old man like a year ago. It's weird.
Body-wise too. Maybe just get, I'm certain that doing that movie, he's probably not training the way he was when he was wrestling. He's probably doing, I guess he's dieted down and he's lost weight. That could be it. It's just, he could just be lighter, and that makes his face strong.
His face looks thinner, which I'm sure is part of it there. But the thinner face, the longer hair. He's lost whatever it is, 15, 18 pounds, right? So,
yeah, so that's going to draw, his face is going to be more drawn. I mean, it's like, really, he's 6 feet tall at most, right? He's probably 235. He was close to 250. So it's like, at 235, you're really not drawn at that weight. But I mean, I guess we're so used to what he used to look like, but that's really not drawn. And it's probably much more healthy anyway, especially when you're, I guess 41 years old. So, but yeah, I know what you mean. He looks on his television. When you look at him under the lights on television, he went from looking like a guy who I would go, why do they keep telling us how old this guy is and how he's at the end of his career? Because he looks young to a guy where it's like, wow, he looks old.
He is old. Yeah.
Not 41's not that old, but yeah, I don't know. You that tournament's going to be interesting. I mean, you got Kurt, and Kurt gets hurt all the time. Kurt's like super talented, but he gets hurt. I don't know how. He didn't look. I mean, he can always have a good match because he's Kurt Angle, but you always wonder like if he's going to get hurt doing it. You got who else is in there in that tournament? Randy Orton.
Here's the whole list of all of the Americans in this: John Cena, Kurt Angle, Jeff Hardy, Randy Orton, Seth Rollins, Dolph Ziggler, Miz, and Rey Mysterio. Yeah,
there's only and they may get rid of those guys quick. I mean, John, they probably will get rid of with a fluke. Kurt, who knows? And then,
I mean, some of these matches have to be short because we got 7 matches in the tournament. We got 3 other matches announced so far. It's 10 matches already. So
yeah, and that the Shawn and Undertaker, the Shawn match,
going to go forever.
It's going to go forever because they can't help themselves. And
AJ and Bryan should go long. The 3-way is probably going to go fairly long. So yeah,
I don't know how long the 3-way will go. I mean, that one's probably better off not going so long because Lesnar's not going to do it. But then, well, who knows? But yeah, AJ and Daniel Bryan realistically should go over 20 minutes, and really over 25. I have no idea why Daniel Bryan lost that fall. I mean, the only thing I could think of that would make this, and again, it doesn't have to make sense logically. It's modern WWE booking where, there's no logic and it doesn't matter anyway. But, beating the challenger on his way to a championship match, unless it's like a heat getting thing on the heel, and this was a babyface match, that just makes no sense at all. I mean, if they were going to lose and cost each other to lose, it should have been Daniel Bryan costing AJ to lose.
Well, knowing them, that's exactly what will happen next week. They'll do another tag match. This time, Bryan will cost AJ the match. They both have a loss going into it. I've seen them do it 1,000 times.
Great. I don't think, it's like, but I mean, here's the thing. Bryan's going for the title. And one of the things when a guy's going for the title is you don't want to make it look like they lose easy. If there was a situation where Bryan took this hellacious beating and lost, it's one thing. But it's like, he took a super kick, right?
Double super kick, yep.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, he should kick out of that. He's going for the world title. I just thought that, again, it doesn't matter, but they weren't thinking when it comes to that. They're just throwing shit together and not even thinking about the ramifications while at the same time thinking, like wins and losses don't matter or whatever. But it's like, and Bryan didn't look strong at all in the Miz program. I mean, most weeks he was looking weak there. And it's like, he has no momentum going into this other than the fact that the people are going to be behind him no matter what to a degree. But it's not like he's like super hot and they're ready for him to win the title. Now, maybe, who knows what the mentality will be. They may go in there and go, let's put the title on Bryan because we need to do something to make people happy and distract them from whatever the hell, the rest of the aspects of that show. I think there's probably a mentality there that would be like, well, if we give them the Daniel Bryan win, maybe they'll be happy and they won't complain that we did this show. But who knows? But who knows about their booking?
Ray looked great. 43 years old. No knee braces.
He's a lot lighter, which is good for him.
Yep.
Yeah, Ray looked good. Most of that match was commercial break, though. It was a 10-minute match. They were rushed. I know they were cut way back on time. And, Ray moves great, though, and everything. So I'm not too worried about him. The only thing I'm worried about with him is they're having him work a lot of dates. And, in the long run, him working a lot of dates is to nobody's advantage. I don't know if they can't help themselves. I don't know what it is. I mean, when I've seen the schedule, it's more dates than I expected he would be working. And
is that just at the beginning, or did maybe they say, okay, we'll transition you into the schedule after a while? Because there was a list of dates, and it was like it's 4 days a week for weeks.
Oh, I think he's off a lot of weekends, but there's a lot of weekends he's on. He's working let me see. This weekend he's working Saturday, Sunday, Monday. He's working 4 dates this week coming up. And then he's working, I don't know, but, some weekends he's on and some weekends he's off. It looks, it looks like he's working more dates than Daniel Bryan or Randy Orton, and he shouldn't be working more dates. He should be working the same or less. I mean, I don't see any benefit to him doing more than about 60 dates a year. I think anything more than that. I mean, they have agreed upon. I don't know what the number is. I have not asked, but I mean, I know that one of the big things that they were negotiating was a number of dates, and there is absolutely a maximum number of dates in that deal. They wanted more, he wanted less, and they compromised in the middle. But I don't think that, it's weird because when I heard about that, they wanted, and I don't know what the numbers were, but they wanted a certain number of dates and he wasn't going to go for the number. And I was thinking, like, don't they understand that it's in everyone's best interest for him to work less dates just because he's had whatever it is, 11, 12 knee surgeries. I mean, no matter how hard he trains, no matter how light he gets, no matter how well he moves in the ring, that's a problem waiting to happen. The only way it's not going to happen is if he works less dates. When he used to work for them, all I used to hear was the complaints. Which was funny because he still worked more dates than like Triple H and Undertaker and people like that. And he's smaller and had been through a lot, but he had the rep, that for whatever reason, those guys are allowed to be hurt, but he wasn't allowed to be hurt. You know how the double standard is. And they were, I always hear the complaints, when was the last time he went a year without getting hurt? It's like, well, 30% of your roster gets hurt every year. You know what I mean? And you work him that many dates with all his knee problems, he's going to get hurt a lot. And the fact that he's 43 and they haven't figured that out mystifies me because it's very simple. One of the reasons he's gotten in this great shape and he's working at this level is because he's picking and choosing dates and he's not doing a lot of dates. If you go in there and have him do a lot of dates, he's going to have the same problems that he had 5 years ago when he was there and he was always getting hurt. And being older doesn't help, I mean, anyway, yeah, I'm surprised how many dates he's working. And he's, but yeah, he looks great and he can be great as long as they don't overwork him.
Because the other big news is they changed the tag team titles. The Bar won the belts.
Big Show turned heel. Yahoo!
Oh, yeah, Big Show turned heel. Forgot about that. 34, I believe, in his career.
34th turn?
It's somewhere between 32 and 34, if I recall correctly. So,
jeez, I was making a joke about 26, and I was young.
No. I'm almost positive. The last time he turned, we had it at like 32 or something like that.
Holy crap.
It's like a ridiculous number.
I can believe it because it's like you can't even keep track. Holy crap. You must admit after that he's probably been booked worse than almost any giant in the history of professional, well, he has been booked worse than any giant in the history of professional wrestling. Botched on so many levels. I mean, he still had a good career and everything like that, but my God, talk about watering, a guy down. Anyway, wow.
All right, so JBL and Orton talked about the Saudi Arabia trip today, both shockingly, publicly, stating they think they should go.
Well,
this is good for Saudi Arabia, for WWE to go.
Whatever.
Saudi Arabia is trying to make change, Dave. It needs something like the WWE to go there.
Oh, God. I mean, Randy Orton, if you listened, he didn't even know what he was talking about. And JBL was just, JBL, you could tell, he's just rushing through these pre-prepared points and, start talking about, well, we did the first show after 9/11, the first public gathering after 9/11. What the fuck does that have to do with anything? You ran a show in Houston, Texas 17 years ago. What does that have to do with going, and running a show in a country where a guy just got dismembered in their consulate, 2 weeks ago? I mean, it's like the whole change thing is just corporate BS anyway. We all know that. I mean, there's nothing that's happening there because of WWE. and it was very clear after WWE left when they were critical of WWE, but whatever. But this is a completely different issue now than it was. There were issues going there in the first place that you could make. To me, like the fact they went there, so what? You know what I mean? It's like that didn't bother me so much them going there the first time. And the fact that it's hypocritical with their avowed empowerment of women. You can't go. We're all behind empowerment of women, but we're going to take the money from somebody and treat women and that treats women second class. So it's like we're not really standing up for our beliefs at all. But it's wrestling, and you're going to have major hypocrisy all the time. And you're going to have that in any star-driven business is going to be filled with hypocrisy. That's just the reality of it. So whatever. So that was something that what bothered me was having to watch that damn show. That's when I realized it's like, nobody else could have gotten away with what they did on that show because people, it's the blessing of pro wrestling is that in the end, most people in the real world think it's a joke. So therefore everything they do is a joke, so something like that just kind of falls beneath the radar. Now it didn't this week because of what happened and the fact they're going back and then people played the clips like on HBO the other night and made the company look really, really bad. But now it's completely different. There's companies left and right cutting ties. And there's others who haven't. It's not like every company's cut ties. There are sports entities that haven't cut ties and things like that. It's a case by case basis. And, they're pretty much, I think the thing that really, I guess today really bothered me is that, do you know how much they're actually expected to make as far as profit on this show?
I have no idea.
2 to 3 million. It's not like 40 million or whatever. What
are they spending this money on?
I don't know. That's what I saw an article. One of the analysts was going like, it's 2 to 3 million. It's going to be 2 to 3 million in profit by the end for the quarter. Like their profits will be $2 to $3 million lower. For $2 to $3 million in profit, you're really going to do this? It's not like it's, whatever. And granted, you are risking a long-term deal that is a lot of money and in time apparently like next year. It's significantly more profitable, but
so they're escalators, or is it a deal where they have to cover the expense of making a set and doing all of the logistics, and then it's a one-time thing, and then they'll profit off it for the next 9 years?
Probably. I don't know all the details. I just saw those numbers, and it was just like 2 to 3 million. You're going to do this for, you know what I mean? It's like. These guys are walking away. There's companies walking away from.
Well, realistically, if you presume that there was a lot of upfront money involved for the first year, then you can really understand from Vince's standpoint of thinking about money why we got to go back next year and the year after.
Oh, I understand Vince because Vince doesn't live in the real world. That's the thing. Vince doesn't live in the real world. He just finds the real world an annoyance because he lives in the world he controls. And this didn't happen. Nobody died in his world. It only happened. They died in our world, but not in his world. In his
what it
world,
is like to the real world. This is a moral and political issue, and to Vince, it is merely a business issue.
It's an annoyance. It's like I have a deal. I can make money. What's this real world shit? I can't control the real world. I only control my world, and in my world, I didn't do nothing wrong. So why can't I go? That's probably where it's coming from. So that's the mentality. The other people, these other business leaders, many of them actually live in the real world. So they look at it as like, man, they dismembered a guy. They didn't just kill him. They lured him in. They, this was a horrible, horrible thing. And, granted, I don't even want to get started on this because it's a whole political thing, but it's like, we have people, there's a lot of people who are looking really pathetic in this one. It's like almost heartbreaking how absolutely broken our political system is. And it's not just one side, it's both sides. People are going to go, oh, you're doing this liberal bullshit. It's got nothing to do with liberal and conservative. It's like right and wrong, and both sides just play games. And it's like, if it goes on the other side, they would probably defend it. You know, it's just ridiculous. It's like, you know, everybody votes party affiliation. Nobody votes for right or wrong. Right or wrong doesn't even matter. And this is like the epitome of it. When you see this, when you just see people going like, well, we got to figure out a way to come up with a fake story that will pacify the public, that convince the public that they're not really that bad, because we want to keep our business relationship with them because they pump a whole lot of money into our economy. And it doesn't matter what they do. And my God, I can't even think of what you could do worse. I mean, I'm sure there are things you could do worse, because plenty of things have been worse than this. But this is still pretty bad. And it's not about like, let's make like we may have to cut ties. And there's countries who have. It's not like, you know, like no countries do this. And there's companies that have. It's not like nobody that has money involved is going to look the other way because they're all businessmen. Plenty of businessmen have looked the other way for far more money than Vince is getting. But you know, just every day was when more and more news comes out on that, and you really see, you know, you just see the absolute attempt to, you know, convince, lie, delude the public badly. It's not even like good storylines. It's not even convincing fake storylines. It's just freaking treating the public like they're like completely like you must have like no sense of logic, you know, to buy the story that they want out so they can keep doing what they're doing because they don't want change and they're afraid. They don't want to make, you know, I don't know. You know, it's pathetic. That's all I can say. It's pathetic all across the board. WWE is not the most pathetic thing here. It's very minor on the list. But, you know, I can't hold them up to very, you know, I don't expect anything from them, though. You know, it's like I've been covering them for 35 years. I know the game. You know, you expect morality from you know, WWE. I mean, again, I don't want to paint every wrestling company with the same brush because some of them probably don't deserve it. But you if you expect high, you know, moral standards from a wrestling company, you're probably going to be disappointed all the time. So I don't like expect different, but this is still, even on their standards, this is pretty hard. But JBL was just, I watched him, and it's just like, he doesn't even have an argument. He's out here. We went to Afghanistan for 8 years. What does that have to do with this? You know, if I don't even want to do analogies, because any analogy I do is so ridiculous because we're talking about like death and dismemberment. I guess like if I were to, you know, kill and dismember somebody, let's say I did that, and you would go like, God, I really like Dave. We've been friends for years. I'm going to pretend that it was somebody broke into his house and did it, and he didn't do it, even though there's fingerprints and there's evidence and there's voice recordings, and it's people who, you know, were his best friends who did it, and you know that they were his best friends. I know, but I'm going to have to pretend because he did good stuff his whole life, you know, and it's like that has nothing to do with it. You know, it's like, I haven't watched a freaking Chris Benoit match in how long? You know? And I mean, it's like, he was always nice to me in life, you know, and all that. But at the end of the day, that guy killed his son, you know? I mean, and at least some people have been able to rationalize the CTE aspect of it. And maybe there is something to that. But I haven't been able to do that. And you know, the people who put this whole scheme to lure this guy in and botch the interrogation somehow. How do you cut a guy's head off in a botched interrogation?
You're asking me?
I'm asking anyone. How do you cut a guy's head off, cut his fingers off? Now, we don't know if he was actually alive or dead when they cut his fingers off. We don't know. But they did cut his head off. It's not like this wasn't like your normal, shoot the guy in the heart death. This was like, I guess death is death, but, dismemberment, you know what I mean? It's like, anyway.
Well, we got to talk about these NXT spoilers, everybody. So if you don't want them, now's your chance to switch off here for a little while. They taped. There's a lot of big things going on. There was the debut of Matt Riddle.
Yes, Riddle is. Obviously the plan is Riddle and Cash Sono for Los Angeles, or at least that's been the plan for a while, and everything I've seen on TV seems to lead to that. So, I don't know if they did any angles for that on the show, but yeah, Riddle started on the show. Yeah,
and it appears. I could be wrong. We don't know for sure, but it appears that Johnny Gargano was in fact the guy that took out Aleister Black.
Yeah, that's certainly what they want you to believe right now. And the whole time, all the way through, wasn't he kind of like the favorite anyway?
Well, when they did the very, very first angle, he walked in the building afterwards. I figured that's where they were going, but who knows? They did the.
It could be a swerve.
It could
too.
still be a swerve. Yeah, there's going to be backstage stuff. There's going to be matches set up backstage. So, yeah, the lineup. They're doing a War Games at the next takeover, which is interesting because MLW owns the trademark to War Games, so I'm not sure how that's all going to work out. But
well, MLW has already said that they're not going to stop anyone from using it. They just want to be able to use it themselves.
I see. So the War Games will be Ricochet, Pete Dunne, and War Raiders against Adam Cole, Bobby Fish, Kyle O'Reilly, and Roderick Strong.
Oh, so Bobby is. Well, I knew Bobby was about to be ready. So okay.
Yeah. So
the fourth guy's Pete Dunne.
Pete Dunne, yes.
Okay, I didn't know that.
And then that's it. So I guess they're going to
the guys in the heavyweight title picture, and I don't know if it's going to be a 5-way. I don't know if it's going to be a series of matches, but it seems like so. Gargano, Ciampa is the champion. Gargano's in there. Aleister Black is back. He returned to TV tonight. Velveteen Dream and Lars Sullivan is also in the picture. So I don't know how that's all going to be sorted out over the next couple of weeks.
So yeah, we got Tokyo Sports running a show in February.
Yeah, so the story line on this is that Motoko Baba, before she died, wanted to promote a big show for the 20th anniversary this year, the 20th anniversary of the death of Giant Baba, and that Motoko died, and these people are carrying out her wishes. That's the story behind this. So New Japan, All Japan, Noah, Big Japan, and Wrestle One, I believe, are all working together. And it's going to be like an all-star thing. So it's probably going to be... They did a show a couple of years ago for earthquake victims, I think it was, in Kumamoto, maybe? I forgot the city. I think that's what it was. It was a pretty cool show, actually. So like they had like the old, champions versus new champions and things like. So, you might have something like, Tanahashi and Miyahara and, maybe like Sugiura, or something like that, all together on one team, or, against like three, who knows, like three top rivals or something. But I don't think we're going to get like the big singles matches, but we'll have all kinds of unique matchups. So it's probably, Sakaguchi, Jun Akiyama, and Marufuji, and Yoshida, who's the head of Noah, and Tenryu, I believe, also are all kind of involved in putting this stuff together. So it's a unique concept of a show with all the companies working together. It's also being done based on the 40th anniversary of the first Tokyo Sports Show, which was a legendary show in 1979, where Baba and Inoki, who were the two top stars of the rival promotion, fought Abdullah the Butcher, who was like the number one heel for All Japan, and Tiger Jeet Singh, who was the number one heel for New Japan. So that's kind of like the framework and the concept. Is you're going to have like dream teams with the superstars from the different companies against other superstars from the different companies. So there's between those groups. New Japan, All Japan, Noah. There's a hell of a lot of great talent, and a lot of there's a lot of great talent. Some of which doesn't get seen as much, because they're like in less visible promotions. But all those promotions have guys. There's Shotaro Ishino in Wrestle One, who's like really great, but nobody really talks about him because he's in Wrestle One. There's Sekimoto, who just killed it when he was in for WrestleMania weekend with Big Japan, who works for other companies but hasn't worked for New Japan. Every year it's like, oh, maybe Sekimoto will be in G1, which never happens. But at least, he did some of the Young Lion shows, I think, but hasn't been on like the major New Japan shows. So I heard the opening night of the junior tag team tournament that the Sho and Yo against Shingo Takagi and Bushi match was like really great, and the Young Lion stuff's been really great in the openers as well. But I haven't seen much of I haven't seen anything of the tournament yet. It's just getting started. Lanny Poffo's going in a couple days. You know that, right?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see how he does.
Yep. We'll see how he does. Oh, by the way, so Kevin Owens had a double knee surgery.
Yep.
The damage in his left knee was worse than expected, but they're hopeful late February or early March return. So that's sort of the timetable, for what it is. It wasn't. He didn't have full blown reconstructive surgery on either knees, but it was serious, in the left knee especially.
So with Will Ospreay,
he's hurting. He's off the tour, but he is going to come back for November the 3rd. That'll be his next match back. So he's going to face Taichi for the Never Championship. So he's doing that match, but he's off of this tour. They were going to have him and Taichi against each other in tag matches every night. I heard Tanahashi and Ibushi are killing it in tag matches, by the way, so far. So I guess the idea is because Omega's not on this tour, that Ibushi is like the surrogate for Omega, for Tanahashi to have his program, his teased stuff with, because everything is supposed to be geared towards Tanahashi and Omega on January the 4th.
So Canelo Alvarez has signed a deal with DAZN, which is throwing around money, like $350+ million.
I think it's 365 million, is it? Or it's 350? Let me see. I actually have the number somewhere.
It's a lot.
Yeah. Hold on. $365 million for 11 fights. That is, there's, at some point there's going to be a day of reckoning with DAZN, or they have gotten in or they're going to shock the world on how many subscribers they're going to get. I'm not sure which it's going to be, but Alvarez's last pay-per-view did just over 1 million buys at $85. So now you can watch his stuff for $9.99, but there's no impetus for him to fight anybody now, because again, one of the things with a subscription service is like, you really, the lure of making people watch like the really killer fight Because if you want to charge lots of money to make it work, you have to put on a killer fight. But when you put on a killer fight, everybody wants to see it. When it's $9.99 fights, there's not going to be the pressure to put on that killer of a fight. But it also means that you're not going to have those big fights, which are the things that really make the sport. And also, there's less visibility for him, although he doesn't necessarily need the visibility. He's already made his name. But, yeah, I mean, it's basically $34 million per fight against, for 11 guys, and he doesn't have those, those big opponents. It's going to be, yeah, they're throwing money around like crazy. But this is the thing too is that, like, I don't know if this, because Mayweather shouldn't fight again against anyone good, because he will lose if it's against anybody good. He may still fight Pacquiao, I suppose, if he wants a big payday. I know that's been kind of talked about, but Alvarez was the guy for the future of pay-per-view. He was the one guy that everybody was looking at, and basically this takes him out of pay-per-view, and in a sense, it moves boxing out of pay-per-view, which means that really UFC is going to be the last people left at a big level on pay-per-view. I'm sure that there will be other people, whether it's Impact or Ring of Honor and people like that on pay-per-view, but they're such minor players in the big picture. When we're talking about the only, like, UFC is going to be the last people doing pay-per-view, and based on that, well, it depends on, again, I'm pretty sure that when they put on big shows, they're going to do bigger numbers than anything, than they've been doing for the big shows, not for the rank and file shows, because of the lack of competition in that arena. I know some people think that the streaming services and the low price per month will kill people's desire to spend $80, $75 for a pay-per-view. It will be seen as overpriced and not worth it. But the last fight that UFC just put on did ridiculous record-breaking numbers at a high price point.
People want to see the fight, they're going to buy the fight. It doesn't matter what other people are charging. It's just the way it is.
There's a top limit. If you charge $200,
why did I get charged $200? I'm just saying, like, if DAZN's charging, they charge $1 a month, and you're going to get all these big events. If UFC puts on a show that people want to see with the biggest stars, they'll sell them for $100.
If it's a big enough fight, they could get away with $100. It'd have to be huge, because there would be a pushback at $100.
Sure,
but the fact is that we saw Mayweather-McGregor
at $100, which people said was completely ridiculous, and it did 4.5 million buys.
Yeah, for a joke of a fight. And we saw Mayweather-Pacquiao for $100 and did 4.7 million pay-per-view buys. So the price, I remember everybody said with Mayweather-Pacquiao that they thought maybe it wouldn't even do 2.5 million buys because the price would scare people away. And if anything, I mean, they did almost double the previous record. So it's hard to say that the price made more people buy. I think that's a stretch. It's not like it's a live event where a higher price does make more people buy in certain cases because of the prestige. I don't think that's the case on pay-per-view, but the price didn't keep anyone from buying either, because when you're getting 4.7 million buys for a fight, there aren't a lot of boxing fans out there that are not in a 4.7 million universe. There's not that many boxing fans. I mean, you can tell because when you see these like boxing matches on TV, like Terrence Crawford fight, which did the biggest cable numbers in, second biggest cable numbers in years and years and years, and that's 2.2 million. Yet that tells you that's for free. There aren't that many boxing fans. I mean, this is it's all the boxing fans and a whole bunch of people who aren't boxing fans who just want to see something that everybody's talking about because it's a big deal. And the price was clearly not much of an object. Bellator, on the other hand, when we talk about ratings, I thought I wasn't, the those ratings for this weekend, for the Bader did 416 on the same night. The Fedor number was Chael, which was like 521, I think, 521,000 for Fedor against Chael Sonnen. When Chael's last fight did over 900 and Fedor's last fight did like 7. There was a lot of competition. There was baseball, there was football, there was a big boxing fight. Still, that Fedor Chael Sonnen number, was real disappointing. And I can't say Chael did a great job selling the fight. Fedor's won his last couple of fights. I guess he lose to Mitrione, but he beat he waxed Mir. But yeah, that number, I don't know what to say. That number wasn't good.
All right, let's do some mailbag questions here. Mailbag at WrestlingObserver.com. William here says, when he finishes up his angle at NXT, do you see Aleister Black heading to Raw since the roster's been hit with injuries such as Owens, Zayn, etc.?
It's possible. I haven't heard. I worry about him on the main roster. I don't think Vince is going to get him.
I worry about everybody on the main roster.
Yeah, I'd even worry about Matt Riddle, who's like as obvious a star as you're ever going to see, and I even worry about him. I worry about I do. Because, I thought Finn Balor was, and Vince loved Finn Balor. And look at him, Kevin Owens came in with so much momentum and he faded away. Nakamura, I think Nakamura, honestly, has gotten about his just due. I don't think he's been, he's at about the level that he should be at. But still, so many of the guys that are talented, they get the 3-week deal, the Apollo Crews, the next 3-week deal, right?
This person here wants to know if you have read Guy Evans' new Nitro book.
Only parts of it. I haven't read the whole book from start to finish. At some point I should read it, though. But I really can't comment. What I have read looked like very well-researched stuff. But as far as like the whole theme and stuff like that, I'd really have to read the whole book to have an opinion on it. But I've seen some of it.
This person here says, although it probably won't be booked anytime soon, Tyron Woodley versus Khabib is one of the most intriguing possible matchups from a competitive standpoint the UFC could make. Saying as it probably won't happen, who do you guys think would win between the two?
Man. Khabib's in a weight class lower. Stylistically, I give a slight edge to Woodley in a sense, but Khabib may just be a different level of animal that, put it this way, it again depends on takedown defense. If Khabib can, Woodley is a much better wrestler than McGregor, but Khabib's taking everybody down and he's nonstop and he's aggressive at it. And if Khabib can get Woodley down, I don't think that Woodley's defense off his back is necessarily that great. So that could be a bad night for Woodley. It's hard because you don't know. There's a big difference between fighting between 155 and 170 in the strength of the fighters. So Woodley's going to be much stronger with much better balance than the people Khabib's been fighting. So, I always usually go, if you're talking about the champion at a weight class up, unless it's like a Bisping who, no knock on Bisping, but he was not the best guy in his weight division. It wasn't like GSP moved up to fight Luke Rockhold, who's also not the best guy in the division, or Yoel Romero, where I don't think that, those fights, or even Whitaker, I don't know that, again, I don't know that GSP takes those guys down at will like he did with Bisping. Well, he didn't take him down at will, but he took him down and did enough to win the fight. But yeah, normally moving up, it's like if you're a super talent like John Jones, it's one thing. Especially in a weak division, if you're moving up to a weak division. But welterweight's a tough division. It's a great fight though. I mean, I don't expect it to happen, but yeah, I mean, it's I find it a very intriguing fight. I'd like to see it. Just have the curiosity of how it would go.
This person here says, curious to the contract statuses of Carl Anderson, Luke Gallows, Shinsuke Nakamura. I was under the impression they had signed 3-year contracts in early 2016. I've heard nothing regarding renewals. Additionally, is there any interest in New Japan's side from bringing these guys back?
There's interest in New Japan in bringing these guys back. I don't expect any of them to go. Nakamura's moved here. He lives here. I have not heard any interest in him in going back. Gallows, I've heard there's a part of him that wants to go back. Anderson's got, kids. I think Anderson because of the kids and things like that it's, even if you're like away more, you're not away so long. Because it's one thing to do the New Japan thing like Cody and the Young Bucks where you go away for a couple days every month. It's another thing to be gone for the entire month, which is what the Gallows Anderson and Gallows were doing when they would go. So when you have kids, the WWE thing, even though you maybe work on the road more days, it's like it's not as tough mentally because it's not like you're not seeing your kids for 3 weeks, which is very hard. You're not seeing them for a couple days, which isn't fun, but it's a lot easier to live with. So I think that's really the key when it comes to Anderson in particular. But time will tell. I mean, yes, New Japan would want them back. That I know.
This person here says, why didn't Vince turn Tony Atlas heel in the 80s? He could have been a good opponent for Hogan, and as a heel, he would have had a manager to talk for him.
I think Tony screwed up too many times, and Vince just didn't want to invest in him at that level. Also, he wasn't that good, and that's being nice. He was not good at all. At the very beginning, when he first came around, he did very, very well, and he was very popular because there were not a lot of guys with that kind of physique around. He really had an incredible physique, and he had some agility. He had good agility. And he just his body was just so freaky that it got over. As everybody got on steroids and everything like that, while he still had a better body than most everyone else, the gap wasn't nearly as big, and some of those other guys were a lot more talented. Like take a guy like Paul Orndorff, who was far, far, far more talented, and different kind of physique, but still very impressive physique as well. Or Randy Savage, who had impressive physique and was far, far, far more talented. So I don't know that, Tony was a very strong guy, and I suppose, he could have, but I don't think, I'm going to guess that Vince didn't trust him in that position anymore.
This person here says, between Daniel Cormier, Jones, and Miocic, who do you think Brock would have the best chance of beating?
Oh, God. I don't think he's got a good chance against any of the three. Miocic's a good enough wrestler, and I think Miocic beats Brock in the stand-up pretty bad. Cormier, I think, is too good of a wrestler. And, the one thing, I would say Cormier because they're close to the same age. John's just too quick for him. Just too much skill. So yeah, if I'm going to pick one, it'd be Cormier.
This person here says, I was reading Terry Funk's book. He was saying that Lou Thesz was not a great champion because he would dominate his opponents and would not let them shine. Is that true?
Lou Thesz was not a great champion by the standards of Terry Funk as a great champion, because they were from different eras. Lou Thesz was a great champion of his era because he got renewed every year they would have that NWA meeting and they would decide on who would be the champion, and they renewed him every single year because he drew. And at that point in the 50s, the role of that world champion was supposed to be to go out there and show that you are the best in the world. When Terry Funk was there, the alliance had changed. The mentality of the champion is to show that your local guy is the best in the world, and the world champion just cheats to get through. That was not the idea with DAZN or with the people who booked DAZN. It was not the idea, when Mushnick was the booker. Mushnick as booker always wanted the world champion to be strong because he felt, that in any other sport, the world champion looks strong. After Mushnick got out as booking the world champion and Barnett took over, it became kind of a free-for-all. You guys, local promoter, you can do whatever you want. And so the promoter would just abuse the champion to get the local guy over. So Terry Funk was champion under the Barnett era as booker. So it's a different, the mentality of what Terry Funk did. Yes, Lou Thesz would not have been a good champion because the idea was to, make the local guy look good, whereas Lou would make guys look good, but only guys he respected. But was that a negative? I mean, some promoters may have thought so, but at the end of the day, he drew, the belt drew, and he was renewed. If people didn't think Lou was a good champion, he wouldn't have been renewed at all. Too many people, so Lou, I mean, I know people who were involved in that, that whole era, and many of them think Lou was the greatest champion of all. I remember Bosch was, he had Ric Flair and he had Dory Jr. and he praised the hell out of both of them, but he always said the greatest world champion was Lou Thesz. So, just different. It's different mentality, different framework. Lou's job was to make the champion look good, and he carried himself. Was the kind of a guy who was good to be in front of the media as world champion. Spoke well, dressed well. And of course, looked good and had great skill. That's what they wanted out of a world champion. With Terry Funk, they wanted a guy that would get Dusty Rhodes over, or get Fritz von Erich over, and things like that. So Terry Funk was wonderful at doing that.
All right, everybody, on that note, we're going to wrap it up for today. The New Observer is going to be out tomorrow. The back issue already up on Monday. We got a lot of great stuff up on the front page. Lots of shows. Had shows the last couple of days with Nick Aldis and Dave Lagana, so make sure you check those out at Wrestling Observer Live. And that is it. We will talk to you again after a while.